All right. Let me see. I'm gonna call the new member orientation meeting to order. Item 2, agenda items. Welcome and introductions. I think we just covered that.
Yep, I think we've had.
Unless you have any other questions.
No, not so far.
Item 2, over and briefing. Discuss the Spalding County Water Sewages Facilities Authority and the City of Griffin relationship. I'm gonna let Joseph take that one off, because that relationship has actually evolved here in the last few years.
I know.
So the, per the water sales agreement, they operate and maintain our water system. We signed a new contract in 2020, or was it 2021? 2020, 2021? So it's a,
2020, December of 2020.
yes.
For it's to begin. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, starting January 1st, 2021. This is a 25-year agreement, and the contract states that the city runs the operation and the maintenance. So the water authority staff, we see it as our obligation to manage the contract and manage expectations and make sure that the city of Griffin is providing the value that we're paying for.
One of the significant changes when we decided to go with the general manager is before, we just took everybody's word that things were being done correctly. Joseph's first 6 months here, the city brought us a check for about $1 million, because things haven't been being done correctly. That check had went back several years for some billing issues, so we weren't getting all our money. There's some other issues. This is what everybody's telling me I talk too soft again. There's some other issues that, he has uncovered and has addressed. You know, he can elaborate on, or you can ask after the fact, but.
And that contract will be available. I can get a copy of that contract.
It's in your book. I have your book. I
Okay.
just didn't bring it down. I'm
Fine,
sorry.
perfect, thank you.
And we had the copy of the sewer feasibility study put in there too.
Perfect.
You have any other questions about that right now? This is a lot to go over and
No,
actually.
no, I may have, after I read the contract, I know it's hard to discuss, say a point of the contract without reading the whole thing. But I know that, having been on the authority before, there was a contentious negotiation. I guess Dave Lamb was involved with that.
And what you will find is the contract that was signed versus the 1995 contract looks very similar.
Similar.
Very similar, and there's some things that were actually omitted in the new contract, and some specificities that should have been kind of included, so I found that strange.
Yeah, I believe we also got to, and as part of that deal, we got to keep a little bit more of the, depreciation. We got a little bit of money out of this deal. I can't remember the specifics, because that was a lot of meetings ago now.
Yeah.
We don't have much leverage. And when you begin negotiating super late in the game, you lose even more.
Who was involved in the negotiations, Stephanie?
The chairman at the time.
Dave Lamb.
I believe Mr. Wilson took part in a good bit of that. He was the secretary treasurer for the authority. And that was about it.
When we negotiated this contract, I came in on the tail end of it. I actually had asked the question, you know, have we asked anybody else what they can sell us water for? And we had a meeting with Clayton County Water Authority, and they were about $350 per thousand cheaper, but it was gonna cost us $40 million to implement that. And the board balked at that expense, but you being the finance guy, you can see what our current margin is versus what our margin would be, and I think we would have a pretty quick payback in less than that contract amount.
The issue, in my opinion, was that those questions began being asked way too late for any infrastructure to be in place, and there was absolutely zero agreement on the part of the city to shorten the term of the contract.
Sure. They're looking after their bond issue.
Of course.
Well, they also, you know, things were said, well, they can just turn our water off tomorrow if we don't agree to this. Well, if you actually dig into it, the valves to actually turn that water off don't exist. So they physically couldn't do it. It was an empty thread. Some people bought into it. And that's why we have this contract we currently have.
Are we happy with the contract?
Me personally,
It seems like we're not very happy with it.
Some are, some aren't.
And there's probably no option to renegotiate at this point. I would assume the city would be not willing to.
There are, potential areas of concern that could lead to some sort of renegotiation and possibly some amendments. Nothing that we really want to address specifically.
Okay.
Ammunition is being stored in case we get to that point. Maybe we have
When
a
the war
chance-
starts?
Maybe we have a chance of cracking it open, if it's necessary. I mean, I live in this county, I have no interest in tearing down the largest city in the county, you know, that doesn't benefit anybody, but at some point, to do the other things that we're talking about doing, we're gonna have to make more money somewhere, you know, and I think the cost of their water to produce is around $1.09 per thousand, and we're paying
$6.73 right now.
$6.73, and normally this is the meeting we set the rates at, which I'm gonna get with Joseph about, because we did not have that in this meeting, which tells me something's going on. We're probably gonna get a rate increase here shortly.
Sure.
Um,
They've got it loaded to, they can stick whatever they want to in their depreciation, and we suck it up.
yeah. No, we're funding 60% of their operations now. We pay for that.
Yeah, 60% of our revenue is given to the city for operation and maintenance. And
We pay for 60% of the customer service department. We pay 60% of the staff. I mean, you know,
Are we 60% of their business?
that's literally tied to the business. Yeah. We are the largest customer.
Right, I assume that.
In Coweta County, everybody crows about the Coweta County contract. I can tell you, being in the business I'm in, Coweta County, at the time we was negotiating this contract, we could actually have bought the water from Coweta County cheaper than the city of Griffin was selling it to them. They would've
Bought
sold-
City of Griffin water.
Yep. And, they had excess capacity right around the housing boom, or right around 2007, they had put a new water plant online, and because of the housing boom, they shut it down. They have since reopened that plant, and they are in the process, I think it's through design, maybe even the contract's been awarded, to build an additional 29 million gallon a day water treatment plant. And with the contract coming to an end with the city of Griffin, which I think is 10 years from now, 13 years from now, 2035?
2035, they can opt out and put them on a 4-year notice.
Yeah, I'm gonna-
So 2039.
With the city.
Yep.
They're gonna opt out because they're not gonna need the city of Griffin
Oh, no.
water anymore.
Yeah.
And that's gonna leave us on the hook to pay for everything. And then you also hear, well, from the city of Griffin side, well, we don't care. It'll be paid for by then. Well, sure, their initial set of bonds would be paid for by then, but they're also planning a $40 million upgrade over here at the Simmons Water Treatment Plant, which falls onto us to pay 60% of, plus whatever PFAS regulations comes down the hill, which are already coming down the hill, Clayton County has them. And they had to borrow $450 million from GFA to build a new water facility to meet their EPD's new guidelines for PFAS by December 28th of 2028, or they're gonna be out of compliance. And we're the next withdrawal from that same watershed, so at some point, that's gonna hit
It's gonna hit
them,
us, yeah.
and we're gonna have to pay for that too. So I personally, and this, again, this is where the numbers come into it, believe that in order to do whatever sewer we decide to do, at some point, we're gonna have to produce our own water, because typically sewer, if you're breaking even, you're doing pretty good in that business. Typically, you have to subsidize sewer with your water profits. And we don't have any water profits to subsidize with, so at some point, we're gonna have to build a facility and treat your own water. Now,
Is
that is a controversial view.
Sure.
But I deal with this on a daily basis. I deal with it years in advance before the project is actually happening, because that's my job, is to go get it, and we get on the front end, and that's how we get our work. But that's the way I see this going personally.
Stephanie, do you know if that Hedge Creek property is still in the county, still with the county?
I don't know.
The county
It
deeded
is.
it to the water authority
Oh, you're talking about the one
30
on the-
years ago.
You're
It
talking
is.
about the property on the, like, southwest part of the county.
Right, on the
So-
creek.
It is.
We looked into it, you remember it was that,
The county still owns it.
They had
they
actually
deeded it
deeded
to
it
us,
to the
but
water.
they
That's
used
the one where
transportation
they-
SPOS
And we deeded-
funds.
Water authority deeded it back.
Yeah, we deeded it
Right.
back to the.
But that was a plan for a water treatment plant. Was the purpose of that.
2 million gallon day plant.
Yeah. That was the purpose of it.
And our
But yes, the
average,
county still, we did just search that title, actually, I
Yep.
just wasn't familiar with what you were talking about, the county still owns it.
and our average day demand right now is around, it hovers around 2.5 million a day.
Okay, so it would be feasible.
Yes.
As a starting place,
That's
if
correct.
the county were willing to
Would convey it back. to-
convey it back. They did it one time, so I assume they have no use for it, so I assume they would again.
And apparently, I mean, if you were on the authority at the time, you might remember, it appeared to have been purchased by the county for the sole purpose of conveying it to the authority.
That's
Because that
correct.
happened immediately afterwards.
Yep.
And when the authority, it appeared to me, just, trying to decide what people might have been thinking back then.
Well, that happened around 95 when the contract was signed, and then the authority decided that since they had a 25-year contract now, they didn't need to spend the money to build a water treatment plant. And they decided that the liability of holding the property was not worth it, so they just deeded it back to the county, and the county was willing to accept it. But now, I know the county has no other use for it.
Well, if you look at our contract, when Cowie pulls out, I think we're gonna be about 15 years into it. From my personal experience, from conception to turning on the equipment, is about a 10-year process. And I want to have everything in line personally, if the numbers work out on everything else we're working on. That should, down the road here, we should be in that position where we can actually start looking towards building our own water facility, running this contract out and moving on with our life.
I think probably prudent is you as chairman to approach the county to see if they'd be willing to deed that property back to us.
We actually have, Clay had, I had.
Already done that?
I had argued for it. We had talked about it in executive session. There does appear to be an encroachment on the property now. But it's still hanging on the vine. Nothing has been done thus far, but I can assure you it's on my radar. It's not gonna fall off anytime soon, because I see we're, at some point, we're gonna have to do it.
If you're gonna do planning, long-range planning, you might as well incorporate that into your plan. Okay. I'll let you know if I have any other questions about that. I'll ask Stephanie
All right.
or Joseph.
The meeting schedule.
I'm fine with it.
I'm not sure where mine, there you go. Now, obviously, I'm obligated to I either have to go on the cruise or get divorced. I'm not getting divorced because she cleaned me out.
Cheaper to
so
go on the cruise.
I'm going on the cruise. So Dick will be taking care of that meeting in February. Outside of that, I should be in attendance of all of them. Your term is 6 years. It's gonna expire 12/31/2029. At this point, I'm not even sure when my term expires anymore. It's just, everything's run together. Committee expectations. Clay's actually did a wonderful job with the committees, and when I first got here versus what we have now, everybody does seem to participate better, so I'm gonna let Clay speak to that.
Just, you gotta play. This is not one of those committees where you don't get to play. This is a working committee. We kind of expect you to come, listen to each other, speak up, state your opinion, and then support the rest of the group. If you walk in here and that's the first time you're looking at the data that Charlie's given you, you're wrong in our book. Expect you to come in prepared, having read the material and all that stuff, look through it. That's why all that backup is there to be able to do it. We expect people to volunteer, stick your hand up and say, hey, I can do that. Either that or Wade picks you. So you may not like the one Wade picks you for, so pick the one you like, say, I'll do that, and jump on that.
I'm happy to do where you plug me in.
Oh,
The
way to
real
go,
work
coach.
of this authority is done at the committee level. And there are folks that come to every committee meeting that aren't members of the committee. And nobody's voice is stifled just because they're not a member of the committee.
They just don't get to vote on stuff.
Right.
And remember that that's an issue of quorum. People are there, but they're not voting they're voting as a committee. There's 3 of us. If you get 5 or 6 there at one time doing it, and they're all voting, that's a quorum, and we're not doing it.
Are we required to post meeting notices of committee?
Yes.
Yes.
We
And
do,
keep-
and-
And
keep
they're open
minutes?
to the public, yes.
Keep minutes.
And Charlie
Yes.
also has a little disclaimer, a possible quorum may be present and all that, but if you're not actually on the committee, I mean,
There's
obviously
really no
you get to
difference, but
talk.
just know that technically there is a difference between when you're sitting in on the planning committee and listening to them versus being on there to be able to do something.
And of course, committee votes aren't binding on the authority anyway, they're just to make recommendations.
Suggestions.
To the
Yes.
full board.
And we work hard to get that so that they come in and have an opportunity in the small group, planning and finance, to work it and then bring it to the big group. There's sometimes, a lot of times, when they're having dual meetings, that it's everybody but 1 or 2 people. So you really have everybody there, and we don't allow that to happen, so it comes back to the big group.
Sure.
And of course, that goes into participation, you know.
Got it.
Finance committee, with what we got coming, your skills are gonna be very needed. Obviously, some of the stuff we're discussing is gonna require bonding and things like that, and as I told you earlier, I'm usually on the other end of this scenario, where I'm cashing the checks, I'm not having to issue them. So I'm gonna be relying on Clay and Dick, people who's been through that process before. And I'm hoping we'll be at that process by June, but that may be a little too aggressive.
All we can do is work through it.
We'll be ready.
Yeah, buddy. You see, it's 3 excused absences within a current.
I read that
year.
from past meeting notices, yes.
Yes, okay. That's a new issue with us that just starting now. See, I've already talked about prepare for the meeting, volunteer for assignments.
Mhm.
Remember, they're all streamed and taped, so when you say something, it's there forever. So,
It could wind up on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, back to the attendance thing, you are allowed under the open meetings law to join by video or teleconference 2 times in a calendar year for a couple of reasons. One would be if you were outside of the jurisdiction, and the other would be if you were too sick to attend a meeting. And that's typically the kind of thing that the rest of them are gonna want proof that you really are that sick, but, outside the jurisdiction, so if you were on vacation, on a cruise ship, and you had adequate Wi-Fi and you wanted to attend,
I could.
you could.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Well, we're all grown-ups.
It's twice, but that is just twice in a calendar
Sure.
year, but that's all.
Yeah, normally I would've had Jim Skinner on the finance committee. He's had a family emergency come up. That's why I put him on the bylaws committee. I didn't want to put too much, I want him to concentrate on dealing with his family problem he has right now versus worrying about this. I mean, we have a good working team, we can get by. And if, hopefully that comes to a successful conclusion, and if it does, we may move him on over to the finance committee then, because we are kind of losing something there, because he's been on that committee for a while.
Sure. I know Jim will.
Our 2024 strategic direction, how much of this can I discuss that we had talked about in executive?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Stephanie, interrupt me, please. We had conducted a sewer feasibility study on all 4 major corridors in the county, 16 east, 16 west, 1941 north and south, and then 19 down here by the Tri-County area. Tri-County, for the most part, the city of Griffin already serves the majority of it. For us to go do anything one-off there, there's just, the money's not there.
Not feasible.
The city has in the past said, hey, we'll just turn it back over to you. There were some service delivery issues and things of that, but it just wasn't that simple. And looking at the study, the money just wasn't there. We had looked.
Realtors would have you believe differently, and
Yeah.
many realtors and developers have presented to this board, to the board of commissioners, to the city. Everybody wants sewer.
Yeah, when we got the engineer involved in it, it just wasn't there.
I can understand.
We had looked out at 16 West, that's definitely on the back burner, but we just looked out there mainly because of the growth of SNOA. You know, figured at some point, something's gonna try to creep across that line. Our goals, I'm not gonna say this is everybody's goals. There are some residential areas that we would like to get sewered. And I think we can do that in a combination with a possible acquisition.
You'll hear a lot about, Pine Tree.
I've heard Pine Tree since
Yes.
1991.
It's still on the agenda.
Sure. But
I think-
unless things have changed, there was never a problem up there in terms of septic tanks.
Septic failures.
And there was never a problem with that, and at that point in time, neither were the people willing to pay for a hookup. Now, I don't know if things have changed.
Things
Not much.
have possibly have changed, just along that corridor. And south of Lovejoy, are you familiar with Lake Talmadge?
Oh, yeah. No, I know where it is.
That land, all that land around Lake Talmadge is owned by Lanice and Herman Talmadge. Herman Talmadge has sold his portion around there. It's a significant portion of land he has sold around there. Lanice has not. The Clayton County Water Authority owns the shoreline, but they are gonna put in 8,500 homes around that. I think it was 8,560 commercial buildings, and it's gonna cross 1941. That's how much land Herman and Louise Talmadge, you know, it's all from their father.
Sure.
But that's how much land they have, Herman has sold off up there. We've also had, I'm aware of a developer has approached a Spalding County landowner up in that area. He owns 68 acres, has a barn dominium on it, but they want to build a public shopping center there. And between those, I think, you know, if they put that many homes up there around Lake Talmadge, those people can either drive into Lovejoy, which is basically bumping its limits, and Clayton County said long ago, ain't nobody else gonna annex into the city. Or they can drive south and spend their money. So I think the potential for commercial coming south of 1941 is gonna increase with that development alone. Plus with the stuff you got at Sun City Peachtree, and then for some reason, somebody is wanting to put a public shopping center there just north of Sun City Peachtree. We're gonna look at, I've already tasked Dick with trying to figure out how to connect the dots and what it looks like they're trying to go. I don't see enough people up there to support a large grocery store or shopping center right now. Maybe I'm wrong, but obviously there's something else coming that we're not aware of, and it very well could be in the southern strip of Henry County there. But from what I understand, the shopping center is gonna be in Spalding County, which brings me back around to the other possible
I think we
acquisition.
can summarize the
Acquisition.
2024 strategic direction, just as this year, as spending that ARPA money.
You know, it's,
Yeah, and you have it's pretty much public knowledge that you have the potential acquisition of the Wilson property up there. William Wilson's property. I mean,
Yep.
William himself told me about that, so
Yep.
it's public knowledge. And the potential, how many homes are on it, 400 acres, I think he told me, or something like that,
I don't know.
which all has to be connected to sewer.
well, that brings me back to the, Stephanie, stop me here if I have to. At some point, how long do you let the value of something increase before you just go ahead and acquire it?
Once again, I know that there was an executive session, but once again, I know from keeping my ears into the community, been some conversations about acquiring the sewage treatment plant at Sun City. And I assume that's part of what your strategic plan may be encompassing, whether or not you're gonna do that.
I cannot confirm or deny that in this
Well,
meeting.
I mean, I assume that, but I assume that has been some conversation regarding that. So the assumption is, are we going to take that over, or are we gonna let Sun City take over the sewage of that development on the north side? It has to happen one way or the other. And since we are the sewage and water authority, I would assume it belongs in our backyard.
Well, we could also, you know, if something like that was to happen, that would be a starting point for sewer and commercial development versus residential. But those are all things that we gotta get worked out in the various committees.
And a lot of these conversations are had in the planning committee, and it's probably the more appropriate place to have these conversations.
Sure.
The sewer steering committee, the purpose of that is, I'm not sure if it's everybody's goal, it's my personal goal. The county has been very vocal about they need to increase their tax base. I'm more of I like larger residential type lots, more of estate type stuff personally. So once you sewer something, how do you keep it dedicated to commercial development?
Exactly.
And, you know, we can control it via capacity or something like that, and that's where the sewer steering committee comes into in drafting these ordinances and stuff, and where I was saying that, you know, protect our business model.
It scares me to death to think about us becoming Henry County.
Oh, I had absolutely nothing to do with that.
Well, you know, that was the
That's the
Henry
fear.
County sewer watered the whole county, and look what happened.
Yep.
They went to quarter acre building lots or smaller, and we went from 20,000 people to 250,000 people overnight.
Well,
That-
the plan for AKB is commercial industrial. That's what Spalding County's plan is.
I fully support sewage for commercial development.
Well-
Residential development, I've got to see a lot of
Well,
work.
you got,
done.
you got two issues. You know, to do sewer, you gotta be able to fund it. Warehousing is not gonna pay for sewer.
Nope.
Especially as they become more automated, there's less and less people in the buildings. So you have to
And there won't
offset.
be the need for it. I
Right.
mean, if there are not many people in the building,
All they need is a
then all
restroom.
you need is a septic tank.
Yeah, it's something that we gotta look at and figure out. Now, you get into, you know, strip malls and restaurants and stuff like that, well, now we're talking about something that we may be able to subsidize the operation with. But at some point, there is gonna have to be a residential component to that, which brings you back to possibly acquiring stuff that's already existing, or cats have already been let out of bags, kind of thing. But again, this all gets back into, we gotta drill down in the numbers and see what works and what doesn't work. We just can't subsidize it with what we make off water right now. We can't do it. I don't see a way to do it. We're turning $2-3 million in profit a year
What?
on water.
Yes, and the majority of it's from our base rate,
Yeah. That's it.
not because of.
And how much of that currently services debt?
I mean, so the majority of it, because we have roughly 7 million outstanding in bonds.
So which means we're pretty well tied up in terms of issuing additional revenue bonds at this point.
That's correct.
Ain't gonna happen.
Either that, or we write a check and pay them off early, which then it drags them more penalties, you know, so that's, again, if the numbers work out, that's what we gotta figure out. We gotta figure out a financial, in addition to the hard linear pipe infrastructure plan, we have to come up with a financial plan and see if they coincide with each other. We haven't got to that point yet, but we're gonna get to that point this year.
I've always contended that the only way you can, without significant water revenue, the only way you can finance sewer is by the taxation,
Mhm.
1 or 2 mills of unincorporated tax to fund it. I don't see any other, is it okay if I talk about our conversation?
Absolutely.
Joseph and I met for about 2 hours yesterday. And, you know, I've heard the number of this project that we currently have on the books of $10 million.
Oh, it's gonna be 30.
Well, what I told him yesterday, somewhere between 20 and 25.
Yeah.
And that's, we need to know that going in up
Mhm.
front, that this is gonna be an extremely cost, not cost-effective, but a burden of cost.
Mhm.
And we need to know that going up front. We can't, I don't think we do ourselves any favor if we continue to say it's a $10 million project.
No, it's gonna be a $30 million project. I price these things all day long.
Yeah.
It's gonna be $30 million.
Yeah.
You do a design build, it may go more than that, to be honest with you.
And that doesn't potentially, I mean, what if you run into rock 3/4 of the way?
Well, he's pretty damn good at his job, but, you know, it may come in under 30, but that is definitely not the trend in the industry right now, I can tell you that.
I said 20 to 25 on my little piece of napkin
Yeah.
that we worked on yesterday, so we're not that far off.
They're questioning if $450 million is gonna build a new water plant right now. They are literally questioning that right now, just north of us. They're not sure if that's gonna cover the cost.
Whew. How many gallons a day is that?
It's gonna be a 20 MGD plant. They're shuttering the J.W. Smith plant, which is in the Panhandle area. And they're gonna build a new reverse osmosis plant is what it looks like they're gonna do, right next to the Hicks plant on the side of 1941, there next to the railroad tracks. And they're gonna run those two plants in tandem. They're gonna keep the reservoirs, and they're still spending maintenance money on the plant right now. They just redid the high service, but that's probably gonna turn into a big pump station, just a pump. They're gonna have two feeds in those two facilities. But the problem with these PFAS requirements is still not just taking it out of the water. They, you know, at some point, it has to get discharged back into where you withdrew it from. And the discharge water can't have it either, and then like when you backwash a filter or something like that in a plant, you have to do something with that wastewater. You can't recycle it, it has to go get discharged, you can't put it back in the reservoir, so not only do they have to treat it coming into the plant, they have to treat whatever discharge is leaving the plant too. And you can do, the cheapest way to do this is with GAC filters, granulated activated carbon. You just put a layer on your, if it's a traditional filter plant, which Hicks is not, it's a clear cone, but you can just put a GAC layer on your filter and call it good. That's something like making a water forecast. But you still have the wastewater issue. Well, that brings in the RO, and the RO is an expensive process to run. And that brings me back to the city of Griffin and us being the next basin on this shed. They don't have the ability to take this out right now. They don't have it. And then I know both their facilities, I've worked in them for 17 years, that they're gonna have to do some sort of advanced pre-treatment, and then where they're currently just sending their wastewater back to the reservoirs, they're not gonna be able to do that anymore either. They're gonna have to take care of that end of it too, if the regulations hold the same as Clayton County. So they're probably looking at several $100 million. So when they say, well, we don't care, the debt's about to be paid for, I laugh. I just find it funny as hell. Because it's never gonna be paid for. And,
More bonds down the road.
other than the fact that we're gonna be footing 60% of that bill in our water rates.
Has there been any discussion about us participating in SPLOST?
I don't believe so.
Is there any opportunity for us to participate?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
It would be a waste of time to even try and address that.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see that happening at all.
Also true that we're not gonna get taxation of 1 or 2 mills for sewer.
Correct.
So we're,
But it's our fault.
well, I'm putting on my money hat that we're running down the road on a project that we can't pay for.
Correct.
So the board all has to pony up a personal check, I guess.
Bake sales.
This is gonna be interesting.
Yes, it is.
This is gonna be interesting, Wade.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I would have said, when we talked about the 2024 strategic decision, the direction, I would have said that that's sewer. For years and years and years, we've been talking water only. And in 24, we decided we were going to, for 24 back when the fiscal year started for us, we decided we're going to do it. So we're doing balls to the wall on what does sewer look like now? And are we going to be able to do it or not? We got the feasibility study, we did exactly what that we wanted to do, and now we're coming down to let's talk money to be
Yeah.
able to get it done.
Final answer, are we doing it or not? That's what this year is about.
Sure.
Yes, so
Quick,
when you,
quick question for you, Joseph. The bond issuance is at what rate, do you know?
So
Of our current month's low.
it's, I think it's like a blended, when you look over the,
Different rates?
Yes.
Different years?
yes.
Is
It's like
there,
a
is
3.5,
there a call,
4.
is there a call date on any of them?
I believe there is. We had this discussion a couple of years ago, but do not quote me on that. I believe we had decided, because we actually talked about just go ahead and pay them off.
Yeah, can I know what the rate is and if there is call dates on those bonds?
I just scanned in the 2015 bond issuance debt payment schedule yesterday. I'll shoot it to you.
Good, thank you.
I believe we did have an early call-in penalty if we did it. If I remember correctly, we did. There was a penalty associated with that.
Yeah, there always is with the call date, unless it's specifically written.
Yeah, so I know they,
I can't even remember what it was.
there was a 2008 refinance that rolled into 2015 that, right now, our debt payment for the upcoming year is gonna be around $1 million, just principal,
Right. Just principal,
just principal,
no interest.
correct. I think, interest, we're gonna be around close to $1.5 million, possibly. But it'll have that rate schedule in there for you.
Good, thank you.
You got it.
Moving on. Secretary Treasurer introduction and set up an appointment.
I think.
Well, Cal, this is our new Secretary Treasurer.
We had a meeting yesterday,
We did.
do we need another one?
Um,
We will have others. but
Yes,
you know,
you just let me know, when and where, and I will have availability.
Good, thank you.
Our legal introduction.
Hi there.
Hi, and you are?
damn good, that's what she is.
Stephanie and I have been on a couple of other boards together.
We do have an outside attorney right now working on the IGA portion of this, just because Stephanie represents, us
County.
and the county. They've been passing that agreement back and forth, as we talked about in the meeting. I believe she has made some markups to it. They're reviewing the markup, so we should be seeing that here shortly. And hopefully we can have that wrapped up, February or March, but I'm sure somebody's gonna throw a wrench in that. The intent of this was not to have a confrontational thing. Obviously, we started way on our side, and over the last few, since I've been on this board since 2020, the issues of where we start and stop and where the county starts and stops keeps coming up. I was a proponent of this. I want, because we didn't really have any hard drawn lines.
I feel like it must come up in Clayton and Henry as well, and we asked, how long ago? It's been more than a year ago. We did an open records request.
Correct.
For both of those counties, and they didn't have anything responsive, so they don't have anything either, so it's not.
Well, yeah, Clayton County is the only agreement they actually have is with the retirement plan. Everything else, even the insurance, they are completely standalone. I know that for Clayton County Water Authority. Henry County, I'm not sure.
But there are still issues with ordinances and things that they have to recommend, because the authority is not a governing authority. It doesn't
Right.
make laws and ordinances, so I fully expected that they would have something in place, and they do not. So,
Now,
things that have worked, I think, for decades and decades,
Probably become SOP.
but that is changing in this, super litigious world that we live in, and the super divisive world that we live in.
who are you working with on the IGA, Stephanie? The law firm?
Yes, yeah.
No,
Greg Heck. What's the?
Heck, Walker, and Jordan.
Heck, Walker and Jordan. So they responded to an RFP for a conflict attorney for the authority last year, so.
I'm making an assumption here, which sometimes is not a good thing, but my head keeps going around the financing of this thing. I'm assuming that we're considered a quasi-governmental institution.
You are.
Government agency.
You are.
And as such, we are limited into what we can invest our money in,
That's correct.
which is agencies, treasuries, CDs, and/or municipal bonds, which is it. At the hospital authority, we have a little bit of leeway because of our trust agreement, but that's a small portion of our funds. Our bigger funds are governed by the same thing. So we don't really have an opportunity to go out and put money into the equity market.
You can't speculate, no.
No. So we're locked into right now 4 and 5% interest. Right now.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Which is hard to grow your money when you're looking at expenses we're looking at.
Yes.
But that's, that's one of those things that we can talk about, Cal, if you need to at a later date. I'm not sure exactly how, stringently the hospital authority actually familiarizes itself with the open meetings and open records laws, but, they apply 100%, and these meetings they have to be properly noticed, there has to be an agenda, they have to be open to the public, that includes all committee meetings.
We have the same thing.
Things that you don't want to talk about, in public, you may or may not be able to talk about in executive session. Those rules are very strict, and there are only a few finite items that can be discussed in
I thought it was only
executive session.
personnel or acquisition.
No, there are others.
There are others.
Pending potential litigation, there are confidential tax matters, there's a laundry list. It's not very long, but it's more than 2 things, yeah. And some personnel things have to be discussed and open as well, so the rules are not as cut and dried as, might make it
Thank you.
easy and sensible. So, but also we live stream, and they're recorded and posted to the Spalding County YouTube channel, and so they're there forever. So what you say here is, saved for posterity. So let's hope that
That's good to know.
Angela doesn't watch today's meeting.
She won't, she doesn't even watch the news, I'm sorry.
Doesn't want to see.
No, she don't even watch the news.
Okay.
She had her feel all that when she was at 911. Erica Dye is on her way up. Look at that, timing, man.
Come on, Erica.
Still in session?
Oh, no, we're to the financial introduction and setup appointment with the Director of Finance and Accounting, Erica Dye.
we're doing our
Erica
new
Dye,
member
Cal
orientation.
Oxford.
Hi, Erica.
Hi.
If you could just give a brief rundown of what you do for us, for Cal, so we're trying to catch him up to speed. This is catch up to speed day
Okay.
for a new member.
Come on around, come on around, come on
Oh,
around
okay.
for it.
I can just come
This
up
is
front.
informal like that.
Okay, good. That's what I was thinking. You guys put me on the spot. Good morning.
Good morning.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you,
I have
Erica.
heard great things about you from
Oh,
Jenna.
wow. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah,
Yes, I am the Director of Accounting and Finance. I will be taking Jenna's place when she retires.
At the county. Good
Yes,
for you.
sir.
Congratulations.
Yes, sir. I have a long history, background in finance. Came from the Georgia Lottery for about 9 years, so.
How come I never won? I
Can't
have to-
control the numbers.
I have to
Can you
play.
tell
I've
us-
never bought a
You know,
ticket.
if I knew what the numbers were, I wouldn't be here.
Can you
Somebody
tell,
tell-
can you tell us the averages?
Somebody told me I had to buy a ticket. I've never bought a ticket.
Well, exactly. You can't win if you don't play.
Yeah, I never have.
There's that pitch.
Sometime, would it be possible for us to meet for a few minutes and just, you know, I asked Joseph if I could get a P&L, and I'd like to be able to sort of digest that and then maybe have some questions if I do.
Yes, sir. That
Erica,
would not be a problem.
he is very, very good in the money business. It's not like,
Well, that's
oh,
what
I don't understand.
I
Yeah.
have been told. Like
Yes,
I said,
so
I
he
have
will-
heard really good
this is a
things
man
about
who
you.
understands
Yes.
what you're dealing in.
It's too much hype to live up to now.
Yeah, buddy.
too much.
Okay.
But no, I would appreciate that,
Okay.
if I can, I don't really have any questions today, other than let me do a little homework that the chairman wants me to do, and then,
Yeah, I have a lot of that too for the water authority.
for you and Joseph, and Stephanie at some point also.
Okay.
I'd like to be able to do that.
Okay.
Good.
Well, welcome aboard
Thank you,
again.
Eric, I appreciate that. I look forward to working with you.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See, that wasn't too bad. I
No,
didn't set you
I'm
up.
getting a test on the spot.
Joseph pretty well walked me through most of it yesterday, so.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
All right, Spalding County Water Sewerage Facility, we need to change that name, that needs to be in the agenda. Sewerages Facilities Authority, General Manager introduction. Cal,
Yep.
this is our General Manager, Joseph Johnson.
Hi, Joseph.
Nice to meet you, sir.
You too.
I believe y'all already taken care of that.
We have.
Last item, homework assignment. This is the first time I've seen this one.
Okay, just, you pick a date, Chairman. All right, Charlie's gonna give you a big book.
Mhm.
Just go through the things, water purchasing, you already talked about, you wanna read through it, read through it. Answer the following questions about it, so that you're into it for us. Legislation and amendments, it'll be in the book, do the same thing, read, answer the questions about it, and then set up a date with Joseph to go physically look at places.
Good.
Anything he wants to show you and stuff like that. And now the chairman will tell you when he wants to have your answers back to him.
Fine. Charlie, does, the,
I would suggest before next meeting, that's,
What's good for you? Next meeting,
I'm fine, whatever. you want.
next meeting it is.
Uh, Does the book that you prepared have the current bylaws in it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
it's a wonderful book. It is a wonderful book. She keeps up to date. And then she comes periodically and gives us, this is an insert. And after you've been on the board for 4 or 5 years, where's that book again? I gotta find that book again.
I actually just found mine. Angie cleaned off the china cabinet and it was behind the liquor bottles.
All right,
I don't know why
questions
those
for
two went
us?
together,
Our
but they-
legislation-
No, I'm
has
good
been
right
vetted.
now, Clay, thank you.
Yes.
Maybe it needs to be amended.
I need to make sure I do all my homework so that I can be able to answer some
Yes.
questions that are
You
silly.
come in way ahead because you've been on the board before. I'm in the authority before. You understand some of the stuff. A lot of people who walk in here for the first time, they want to start talking as an example. I want to go out to our sewage plant and see how that is and everything else. We don't do that. What do you mean we don't do that? It says the name. No, we don't do that. And they don't understand the bond issues and where we're doing it. Why do we get with the city the way we're doing it? So you come in with a big advantage. The other advantage is you know most of the people we're talking about.
Sure.
And you can come and say, hey, let's sit down and talk about it. The tough issue that I think we're getting ready to go through is just funding. You know, we have great appetite,
Yeah, we do.
and we're gonna have a
Small meal.
small meal.
Question for you, Joseph. What's the length of time for a permit from EPA on discharge plant?
So the state,
Treatment plant.
you're probably looking at, from beginning to end, 36 months. So that's to get the waste oil allocation, to do the engineering design, to get a plant designed, submitted, do the anti-deg, check all the boxes. You have probably, in construction, 36 months.
But, correct me if I'm wrong, someone did us the favor of getting a waste load allocation permit
They have started the process.
in our name, and somehow we wound up with the paperwork, so.
Blue Springs thing?
No,
It's,
this was down,
On AKB.
OKB? Really?
of course, it came back to us via the state in our name, and we were unaware this was going on. So technically, we already have a waste load allocation permit.
I sent the person who did it a nasty gram and never heard back.
And, because they did it in our name.
I haven't either.
So, you know, we are one step into this. And we didn't have
It
to pay
saved
for
us
it.
3 to 6 months.
We,
3 to 6 months, yes. That's assuming that the state's gonna allow us to take that waste oil allocation point and move it to where the water authority, needs to cite a plan.
I'm assuming the planning committee's taking all this into consideration. They should, that's, I assume they are.
We have great confidence in the planning committee.
And that-
It is when you go to it, it will be, hey, this is really, really, really good.
Okay.
You'll be really impressed, I think, the back and forth conversations that go on and thought processes and everybody adding their part.
That's one of the reasons I put Dick on both committees this year. It may not have been a popular decision with some people, but I want one voice to keep the cats in line, and let's drive this to some sort of a conclusion by the end of the year.
Takes a man to do that.
I've personally have talked about sewer for 3 years. I'm tired of talking about it. Either we can do it or we can't do it. Yeah, I'm personally agnostic to it. I think there's gonna be multiple components to make it work if we're gonna do it. But I'm tired. Let's go make a decision, and that's where you're gonna come in. You're gonna help us with the money part. Which it already sounds like you're already on my same wavelength with that one too. So,
That's gonna be a very difficult.
I agree, but there are some other components of that where other revenue could be brought into the equation. We just have to see if that would actually work.
Well, there are things that, you know, there are grants and there are things, but you can't plan on those. You can't build your plan around getting grants.
Well,
Yes, correct.
there's also existing customers,
That's true.
so,
That's true.
And putting the sewer on the back of our water ratepayers is a big, big decision.
That's a tough, very, very difficult decision.
Yes, that's a tough decision to be able to do.
I can tell you right now, I'm not a fan of it.
I wouldn't be, if I live in the county especially.
Yeah.
But I go back to, if the commissioners want it, they gotta step up.
Whoop. That's what we're talking about.
With all that being said, I'm gonna adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for your time.
We'll get a tall hammer up here for this.
Thank you, sir.
So glad you're here.
Thank you. Wade,
Thank you for
my pleasure.
volunteering.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Look forward to working with you all year and